Hello and welcome to another UCM podcast. I am your host along with Dr. Bill Davis. Bill, how's it going?
It's going, Tony. Let's do it.
We're here, man. And this is a part two. This is a two-parter. There was so much to go over the first time. We're like, you know what, we got to split this into two.
That's right.
This is going to be leveling up through the stages of practice growth. First off, where are we for the mission, right? Where are we in our practice growth, our life cycle of practice growth? And then what do we need to do to get to the next step, the next level? And so real quick, by the way, if you're listening to this or watching this right now and or the replay, if you haven't done so already, I would go back and watch part one. um, that being said, there is a brief recap I'm going to do right now. Obviously, right here on the screen, if you're watching the video here, you can see, you know, the beta part one, beta 1.5 is starting your upper cervical practice, right? Making sure you start right, getting all your boxes checked and all kinds of fun stuff there. There's a whole lot of stuff to do there with getting your upper cervical practice going. And then the second step, the second level is what we call the do everything doc, where the doctor's spinning the wheels, you're doing everything, you're wearing so many hats, and the practice is growing up to right around 20K. Every market's a little bit different for each of these, but that's a general rule of thumb, for that first level of practice growth. And then practice growth stage 2 is the misaligned doc. Now this is where wanting to grow beyond the 20K, but making sure that you start to look for that first associate to really go into that next level. So finding ways to delegate, finding ways to grow that team. To get into the third stage, which is the trailblazing doc. And that's where it starts to really pick up momentum. I like this little graphic here. This is the Doc got the cape on, man. That's cool, just flying up there. But that's growing from your first associate into your second, and just like, hey, we are going to start soaring, man. And so that's kind of those are the three stages. For more detail, obviously, you should watch that first that part one podcast episode. So that being said, we're going to dig into stages 4 through 7 today, which is where it really gets fun when it comes to the mission, when it comes to the upper cervical practice, and making a major difference in your community and beyond. Wouldn't you say so, Bill? This is where it gets fun.
Absolutely. This is where it's really fun. Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to go through stage 4, 5, and 6, kind of together. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of things that are involved in these master stages, the associate master, the scaling master, the multiple practice master. There's a lot of similarities there. So we'll go through that relatively quickly. And then we really want to camp out on that last stage, that stage 7, because no matter what happens with your practice, you will end up in stage 7. And stage 7 is the legacy doc. It's that transition out of practice. And everyone gets there. So not everyone goes through all these stages, but everyone gets to that last stage. Everyone
At
starts
some point.
Everyone at least goes into stage 1. If you've opened your practice, you've gone into the first stage, and you go into the last stage at some point, that transition out of practice. So that's where we're going to focus in on today, Tony. So let's focus in now on practice growth stage 4, which is that associate master. So the associate master is, it's really your upper cervical practice is a well-oiled machine at this point, right? You've gone through those first 3 stages. You've really gotten to the place where, man, you're rocking and rolling, right? You've got a leadership team in place at that point, typically, because you've gotten to the point where you have a senior associate in place. You have someone you can really trust to lead the practice or run the practice even when you're not there. You typically have an office manager that you have in place during this stage who is focusing on building your CAs and your office team to really be successful as well. And so now it's a matter of of re-engaging, recommitting to your mission, inspiring your team, working on your systems, your branding, your marketing. And you might need to try something new. This may be the time where it's like, okay, let's rekindle some of that excitement from what it's been about during these first 3 stages, because there's a lot of work to get to this place where you're in this associate master stage. And you a lot of times you just need to challenge yourself. You got to say, you know what could we do? How far could we take this practice? How far could we go in our community? How much of an impact could we make? And so it's a matter of, solidifying your associate training systems, your recruiting of associates, and those types of things. Because in this associate master stage, you can hire a 3rd, a 4th, even a 5th associate doctor before moving into the next stage, which is the multiple locations. So you can have a big one location practice with lots and lots of associates in this associate master stage for sure. And so, skills you need to level up: mission, vision, values. It's funny, we talk about that in the first phase, the first stage, how important that is to establish them. But at this point, you have to go back to it. You have to recommit to it. You have to start to talk about it even more. Communicate it over and over and over to your team. Help them to be inspired by your purpose. And then it's a matter of really pouring into your leaders. When you have that senior associate, when you have that office manager, you want to focus on them. You want to focus on encouraging them, building them up, strengthening them as leaders, helping them to develop skills that they need as leaders. That's really your most important role as clinic director, is to pour into your leaders and develop them so that they can continue to pour into the rest of the team and grow the practice and continue to accomplish a mission. And then branding and marketing become really, really important at this stage, right? You've got to position the practice as the upper cervical specialty office it is. If you want to keep growing, you've got to be thinking about all the details, all the different aspects of the practice to really have it dialed in. And then the marketing aspects, having a plan to get enough new patients to fill every doctor's schedule, right? So every time you add an associate, you've got another schedule to fill, right? So having that marketing plan in place to really get that dialed in is so important at these later stages of practice growth. Tony, thoughts on any of these skills that you see at this associate master level?
Well, what I see when I'm speaking with doctors who are in this stage is the relentless reinforcing of mission, values, right? Like just making sure everybody is pulling the same direction, and maybe needing to move people to a new seat, tweaking their role, that type of thing. And so it's like, because sometimes it can, when you've got a couple locations, you've got multiple docs, you got obviously multiple CAs, part-time, full-time, you've got a clinic director, and it's like you're spinning plates and you start going on one section. Oh crap, this one's got to get some more momentum on this one, and man, it's, you can feel like you're doing that. So it's like keep doing the things that got you to where you are, right? So like, don't let them go. And if you're finding that you're spinning your wheels to try to spin the plates, if I can merge two analogies there, then probably need to delegate that to somebody else too, or take something off your plate so you can focus on that consistently. Make that part of your meetings, make that part of, just a regular touch point with your team so that everybody's on the same page. That's what the biggest thing I would say is really continuing to, like you said, rally the team that says their leadership development, right? Making sure everybody is marching the same direction, right? Otherwise you start to lose your way.
That's right.
And so that you're going to have so much more like market penetration and just awareness for the practice and what upper cervical care does if you can really rally everybody together, push in the right direction.
That's right. It's all about alignment. We go back to that. And, as upper cervical chiropractors, it's, alignment is so important to us, but at this stage, alignment is key. You've got to keep going back, looking at that alignment, making sure that it's stable and that
maintaining
it's continuing to grow, maintain that wellness care. That's right. And
That's
so
it.
how can we help docs who are in this stage, this associate master stage, Tony?
So obviously with kind of what I was sharing, like there could be a couple things. A lot of times with the sticking points have to do with just re-solidifying, the communication between your team members. So what is the structure for communicating with multiple teams? What is the structure? Like how do we delegate? When do we delegate? What, I say what, who, what, how, all those things, because you want to have effective communication with everybody. You may think they get it, but do they, right? This is where sometimes it can be tedious because you're wanting to get away from possibly doing meetings, but that's where meetings are so crucial. And you having a hand in it, right? So helping you, where we would help is to help coordinate, how do we do our meetings, how often, with whom, how do we delegate? And then sometimes it's like hey, this is my head doc at this location. Well, maybe that doctor needs a little bit of coaching. Maybe he's running the meetings for locally, on a weekly basis. He should be, right? But he's not equipped to do it, or she's not equipped to do it, right? So there's a degree of equipping them that we can bring to the table to really get the most out of that. Because what can happen is a location's jamming, and maybe it's you that was involved in it, and then you're like, okay, new location, and then things start to slow down at your original location while it's being built up there, and so sometimes a little extra love, a little extra attention to help make sure that the systems are followed through with, and that's where we can bring what we can bring to the table there too.
Yeah, so it really comes down to, at this stage, when you have one location, right? So just, don't want to get confused on the next stage, because the next stage is when you actually have two locations. But when you have one location, you have multiple associates in that one location. I mean, the key with that is making sure that you have enough new patients coming in the door, and that the associates and everybody is in alignment. And so the main way we can help with that is our Platinum Plan. Our Platinum Plan is it's a huge new patient machine generator, right? It just cranks out new patients, but also we have the support with our practice growth sessions to help you and your associates and the whole team to stay in alignment and really be able to take all those new patients and keep them and turn them into referrals and all those kinds of things, so you can keep growing. You can, obviously you can stay in this stage. You don't have to go on and have multiple locations. You can have a really awesome practice in a single location practice, but really the Platinum Plan is the main thing that has been designed to help doctors in these late stages, 4, 5, and 6.
But and the biggest thing is, like, your role as the practice owner starts to change though, right? Like, so you're delegating more to the associates. Maybe you've even moved away. Like we know a doctor was recently who's like, hey, I'm completely stepping out of the practice to go to a different role of oversight, and I'm just going to equip, empower, and so like that, and maybe it is just the one location. You just want to go big, just one big, massive mega location, okay, and then maybe that's that for a season. And then maybe that one of those docs goes, hey, I'd like to go to a different city. Oh, great. Let's set up how we do that. And so, to your point, yeah, it could be the one location too. Sure.
Yep, absolutely. So the way that you can engage with us, and if you're in this stage and you want to keep growing, I would schedule a practice growth strategy session. Go over to ucmpracticegrowthsystems.com and get that scheduled, talk this through, start to look at the Platinum Plan, see if that's a good fit for you and your practice at this stage. It's been designed for you. It's been designed to grow you in this stage. And so moving into stage 5, practice growth stage 5, the scaling master. As I said, there's going to be a lot of overlap between stages 4, 5, and 6. So, with the scaling master, your original upper cervical practice location is really humming. It's time to start scaling. It's time to open a second location, maximize your influence, impact, and income. And it's all about focusing on the right things here. So this is, again, not everyone wants to do this or has to do this. It's, you can continue to grow in one location for a long time, and many doctors do it with multiple. I mean, I know doctors with 5 associates in one location, and so
Right.
it's all about space and capacity.
Right.
Capacity impact. If you can get a big enough space where you can see lots and lots of patients in one place, and you have a big enough geographic area to be able to draw them, then one location can serve you well and serve your community well. But if you are looking at if you're looking at a large, if you want to make a larger impact in the geography of your area, basically, right, where you're finding, okay, you know what, we got a lot of people over here that it's harder to get to the practice, right? So let's
Right.
put a location over there, and then we can really maximize our influence, impact, and income by having 2 locations that both are rocking and rolling. And so that's, in this area, this scaling master stage, the skills you need to develop up to level up is really to duplicate your culture, right? And this can be really challenging. Opening a second locations it's like opening a new business. It's important to double down on your culture, focus in on making the second location part of the culture and not its own culture, right? Because that's the key. Is you could end up with 2 practices
Right.
that are completely different, that are
Right.
completely that don't work. One doesn't work because it's not like the original. And so making sure that you duplicate that culture, that you expand what you're doing is really, really crucial, especially if you want to do multiple locations. If you do the second location well, then adding the third becomes a lot easier, right?
Right.
And so making sure that that second location is connected to the connected to the mothership, right? You got to make sure that it's that they're on the same page, that everybody is speaking the same language, you have the same systems in
Mhm.
place, that the whole team is connected to the mission, to the purpose, to the values, that the values are consistent, right? All that kind of stuff. That duplication of the culture is so important. And then this is where you need to even develop, you need to do even more leadership development, right? Because when you have leaders who are not going to be with you on a daily basis in your actual physical location, it becomes even more important to be able to pour into them, right? Having those one-on-one meetings, having those consistent engagements with them so that they're they're doing what you would do in that other practice, right? They're following the vision, they're continuing to live out the core values in that other space, because you want them to have that autonomy of having leadership in that second location, but you don't want it to be completely different in a completely different experience, right? You want a patient who goes to, for instance, either location to have a very similar experience, right? You don't
Right.
want them to have completely different experiences. So you got to align your leaders, make sure they are still focused on the mission, making that larger impact in the community. And then the branding and the marketing, again, becomes extremely important as you add that second location. Now, you want 2 practices that have very similar branding, that have a very consistent messaging to the community, and having developing like a 3-year marketing plan for that new location is really important. You want to be able to, because you got to think about it. It's a new practice, right? You got to have a new practice. You got to have new people coming into that new practice. And so developing a marketing plan to really help you to continue to grow into that second location is important. And so in this scaling master stage, Tony, when they have the 2 locations, or they're looking to move into 2 locations, how are some of the best ways that we can help?
Well, some of that obviously I already covered, as it pertains to, helping to with the communication between the different teams, that type of thing. What I'm doing now for a couple of locations is bringing in, like I mentioned, the meeting notes, the meeting sheets, making sure that we help. Um, it's the same sheet that both teams are using, same metrics, same flow, all of that, the same timing of all the communication. They have different goals because they're different. They're in
Sure.
different stages,
Yep.
but there's that, right? So it's the communication side of it, helping to make sure that the systems are implemented. Now, the other thing too is, like I had mentioned earlier too, is communicating with the second office. And so like we can help support you as it pertains to some of the implementation of of the systems themselves. So you're not having to babysit every little thing. You can go more of the high level stuff, and then we get in the trenches for you with the office. So that can keep you free to focus on what only you can do, which is helpful. And then of course, I mean, a marketing system for the second location or the third location, right? So like making sure that there's a stream of new patients there that are qualified and the right fit, and even helping to coordinate and plan events, doing a grand opening, or starting to get this an awareness for that new community. And so helping to custom promote those things for you with the graphics and the notifications, and using your current patient base as a means to get the word out there, that type of thing. We can really assist with that and take a lot off your team's plate, so they can focus more on system implementation and signing up new patients.
Right. Yeah. And it's very common, right, to misstep when you first start a second location by not thinking of it like a new practice, right? It's a new practice, right? So it needs to be treated like a new practice. It needs to go through those stages that we've looked at.
Right.
Now, obviously,
right.
you've got experience, right? So you're starting further in the process because you have all the experience and you have a system that you can apply, but you still have to go through those steps, right? There's still start right steps that have to be done for that second location, like we talked about earlier, right? There's initial steps: practice growth stage 1 stuff, practice growth stage 2, right? So this is a silver plan for the second location. Makes complete sense. That's where you can really get in there and get things rolling, possibly even a goal plan depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes a lot of sense for that second location to have its own system running, so that the new patients can just be flowing in.
So there's one doc I'm thinking of too. It was the same thing. It was he was within his first year as a second location, right? And so and things were going well, but then there was just this little piece of the puzzle that was missing, and it was there, but it just needed to be really systematized and tight, and that screw needed to be tightened, right? And so once we established that, all of a sudden, oh man, it was like the flywheel and engine. All of a sudden, now we've got momentum. Everything's firing where it's supposed to be. Now we've got power again. And it's like, and now collections are going up where they need to be, And so, if you're listening to this or watch this, you're in that place right now, going, oh man, why isn't this? What's going on here? Maybe it makes sense for us to have a conversation and just to see, how we can support your second doc, right? Or third or whatever it is, so that's what we're here for, is just to see, where is it, can we fit? And the missing piece, it's different for every location. And that's what the practice growth strategy session is all about, is just to uncover that. And there might be a few things, and it's just to get you up where you need to be, and then have a game plan for moving forward, whether it's short-term, long-term, implementing a full marketing system, whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So schedule that practice growth strategy session. If you haven't already, schedule at ucmpracticegrowthsystems.com. Click on Start Growing. Get that scheduled, Doc. It's going to be extremely important for you. And then moving into that sixth stage, the multiple practice master stage. This is when your first 2 practice locations are rocking and rolling, and it's time to start scaling to 3 or more to make an even larger impact on a larger area. Right. I mean, with some docs that have a plan to do, say, 5 locations in a geographic area. But it's crucial to remember that every new location is a new business. It needs to be invested in with time and money to make it successful. It's all about continuing to focus on the right things. And so skills you need to level up. There's a lot of duplicate, like I said, duplicating that culture. Once you get that going, when you do it well in a second location, you just have to rinse and repeat. You got to do the third location in a very similar way that you did the second one, right? If you have a second location that is successful, do the things that made it successful in the third location. and then do the things that made that successful in the fourth location, right? You have to just keep doing the same things in order to make them continue to be successful. So continue to invest in your leaders. Now you have, a clinic director who is, when you get to 3 locations, right? You have your maybe yourself running the original location. You have a senior associate who's a clinic director at the second location. Then you get a third doctor into the third location who is also a clinic director. So there's leadership development that you have to continue to pour into these other doctors, because they're running practices, right? This is not just, they're not just training associates or doing other things. They're running a practice. And so pouring into them with a higher level of development is really, really important. And then the branding and marketing continue to be really important, right? Every time you add another location, your brand could be diminished or it could be advanced. And with the right plan in place, you can continue to extend your brand and make it more and more of an impactful thing within your community. And then developing that marketing plan, right? You got to get the new patients coming in the door at the third location, fourth location, however many locations you want to do. Every time you got to keep focusing on marketing to get enough people coming in the door. And so how do we help the doc in the multiple practice master stage, Tony?
Well, it's rinse and repeat on this one.
Yeah.
It's I would say the platinum plan for that first main location. We're talking silver or gold for each marketing plans for each of the others. And then, like I said, helping that owner for us being in the trenches with your leads for each of those locations, your lead associates for each of those. And so, the ones that are running those practices. So, helping to make sure that those, any sticking points are quickly identified and then alleviated. And then all the while, of course, making sure that you've got the right new patients coming through the doors, keeping the collections going the right direction.
That's right. Keep the phones ringing, right? We want to keep the phones ringing and people coming through the door. So that's the key at all 3 locations. And so again, if you haven't already, schedule that practice growth strategy session, ucmpracticegrowthsystems.com. Now let's focus in on the last stage, the transition out of practice stage, what we call the legacy doc. And practice growth stage 7, the legacy doc, it's going to come for all of you, right? If you're a practicing upper cervical specialist, at some point, you are going to,
there's an out.
You're not going to be practicing anymore, right? Whether you're ready, whether you are, going to sell your practice, you're going to pass it on to your kids. Maybe one of your kids is going to go to school. You're going to, have them transition in practice. You're going to retire. It's the key thing is understanding that your work isn't done yet, right? Even if you're at that stage now, if you've been in practice for 30, 40 years and you're like, okay, I'm ready to be done, right? I'm ready to be done practicing, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be put in to do this well. In this stage of business, you got to focus on transferring ownership. You got to set up your succession plan. You got to leave the upper cervical practice in great hands and continuing to focus on the right things so you can finish well. Because that's the key is you don't want your practice to just go away, right? You don't want to, one day you just lock the door and you leave and the patients they don't know what to do, right?
You know how many times that happens though?
Yeah. Way more than it should.
Way more than it should. And it just kills any momentum for upper cervical for that area.
Right.
It may completely destroy it. Like there's no other doc in that area and it's done. And then people just go to a bunch of, some full spine guy down the street or whatever, and it's like,
they don't get,
I hear about it happens I hear it multiple times a year.
That's right. Right. And so this is something, Doc. I mean, we talk so much about, man, we need to get more doctors into upper cervical. We need to bring more students into upper cervical. Yeah, that's true. But we also need to transition out of practice better than we've done in the past. This is a crucial step like Tony said, continuing to expand upper cervical. If every time we have a successful upper cervical practice, a doctor who's been pouring into a community for decades, and they just pack it up and they're done, and that's it, right? I mean, that's a travesty. It shouldn't be that way, right? This community needs to continue to have the legacy of that doctor carry on by having someone continue to serve that community, so that's where this legacy doc stage comes in, and the skills you really need to level up. There's just one big skill, and that's planning for the future, right? It's really what it comes down to. It's just thinking about the future, ensuring that you have the right people in place, you have a right plan in place to transfer all aspects of your business to new owners, including leadership, financial, legal, reputation, and brand, right? It's all of that stuff. It's planning for it. And I'll tell you what, Doc, it's never too early. It's never too early to start thinking about this. You could be 5 years into practice and not have a plan in place for this, and it could be too late, right? Because I'll tell you, I can tell you from personal experience, you never know what's going to happen, right? I went mountain biking with some friends on a Saturday morning, and my practice was gone because I broke my neck, right? So you never know when it's over, and so you've got to have a plan in place to make sure that it continues on without you. I was in that place. I was only 3 years into practice. I was right on the edge of needing an associate. And it was, my situation was different. It was one of these things where I couldn't have, even though I had a plan in place to add an associate really within months of me being injured, it was too early, and it was also too late all at the same time. Right. But I'll tell you, it's all about building that practice up, building it so you can bring on that second doctor. This is why we call that second stage of practice, the misaligned doc stage. I got some pushback on that recently from a doc, right? The misaligned doc stage. Why do you call it the misaligned doc stage? I have a successful practice. I'm seeing all these people. I'm helping lots of people in my community. Yeah, you are. But you know what? You're a solo doctor practice. And it means that you're misaligned because you're vulnerable and unstable. And that's what a misalignment does to the body. It makes you vulnerable and unstable. And a solo doctor practice is also vulnerable and unstable because death, disability, illness, even just a vacation, a maternity leave, right? Any of these kinds of things, any kind of absence from the practice for the solo doctor who is they're the treadmill, they're on the treadmill, they're running that practice constantly. But if you're not there, it doesn't work. That's why it's misaligned. That's why it's so crucial that you build the things that you need to bring a second doctor into the practice so that it doesn't just depend on you. And that's what the legacy doc stage is all about. So, Tony, how can we help the legacy doc?
Well, it's really assisting with that previous slide. We assist you through all of that. We help you develop the plan. What is the plan? And what are the benchmarks that need to happen? What is the time frame? What are you looking and establishing too, like your goals? Are you looking to just be completely done because you want to travel and see the world or whatever? Are you looking to keep seeing some patients along the way and then slowly phase yourself yourself out? Are you looking to retain ownership and you're wanting to maybe have another doc, rent the space or something like that. I don't know, and are you looking to have a partnership? Maybe. And so it can be all different things, like what's on your radar. So we can talk about the pros and cons of each of those different things and ultimately develop a game plan and a timeline that's flexible because you never know,
Yep.
and so that's going to work for you and be a win for everybody. And then there also might be an opportunity too, like, okay, well, I want to bring somebody on, or I want to start delegating, maybe sell the practice, let's say. Well, is your practice what valuation of your practice? We can help, give you an accurate valuation of your practice. Like, what should you offer? What should you sell it for? What's fair? What's reasonable? Is your practice viable? Does somebody
Yeah.
even want it?
Right.
Is it healthy? Is it going the right direction? Does your website look right? Does your social media look right? Or is another, like a new doc, going to come in and just go, oh man, this is like an overhaul. It's a lot of work. Or we can help get you where you needs to be. So when someone sees it, they go, hey man, this is established. This is a dominating practice. I could step into this. And so like it's very custom done for you, but it's to
Yeah.
walk you through everything that needs to be done. And the other thing too, I want to touch on this is like we're getting ready to have I'm getting ready to do a podcast this Friday with a doc who's transitioned out of multiple practices, and we were having a great conversation at an AO conference talking about your purpose and your identity and life after practice and all these different things. And so developing that mindset so that when you're done, you're not done, if that
That's
makes
right.
sense.
That's right. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. It's about the mission, right? It all comes back to the mission. If you believe that upper cervical chiropractic is valuable, right? If you believe that it's valuable, you think that you believe that it's important, that everyone in your community has the opportunity, has the ability to go see someone who does upper cervical specific work, then you owe it to them. You owe it to them to have a plan, right? What are you going to do when you're not able to see patients anymore, right? That has to be a plan in place, and it has to start. And I'll tell you the main reason why this doesn't happen, the main reason why we hear so many people just packing it up and the practice is closed on a Thursday afternoon and the patients barely knew, they got an email the day before, is complacency. And you get in a complacent place in the misaligned doc stage and you just sit there. And you know what? I'm making enough money. I'm helping lots of people in my community. I'm a solo doctor. And you know what? I get, I don't want to have to think about the future. I don't want to have to put a plan in place. I don't want to have to hire an associate. I don't want to do all these things. You just get complacent, and that ends up costing you and your community and upper cervical as a whole, because of all these docs who are in this misaligned doc phase, don't recognize it, cannot get over it, can't get through it to go to the trailblazing doc stage where you actually have two doctors in the practice. And that's why we have so many docs that are not legacy docs. They're not leaving a legacy. They're just shutting it down.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, right? But it can change, and it can change with you. It can change with you, doc, right? If you are this doctor, if you are a solo doctor practice right now, you can change in your community. Do you care about your community enough to make a change? Do you care about it enough to break through the complacency so that you can be a legacy leaver for your community rather than just leaving them abandoned, leaving them stranded, and leaving them without care in your community? If it matters to you, then call us. We would love to help you. Reach out to us. Schedule the practice growth strategy session at ucmpracticegrowthsystems.com. We would love to build a plan with you, right? This is one of the things that Tony and I love more than anything else, is like, hey, let's keep upper cervical going in this community. Let's get a plan in place. Yeah. We want you to be a legacy doc. We want you to move through these stages, and we want to help you do that. That's what we're about. Yeah. We're about growing upper cervical and growing you and growing the number of people that are out there that are sick and suffering, who need hope and healing, to finding you and your practice.
That's it. And it just starts with a conversation. Let's just have a conversation. Let's see where you're at, where you're wanting to go, where you need to go, and let's uncover your sticking points and what we have to get you through those things. That's what we're here for.
That's it. Have a conversation. We're all about helping you grow, doc. So one more time, schedule that practice growth strategy session over at ucmpracticegrowthsystems.com. And as we always say, go team upper cervical.